Welcome to Inequality of Opportunity, raising awareness of intersectional injustice. Over the course of this training video, you will learn the ways in which inequality affects clients of community action agencies. By strengthening your understanding of inequality, you will be able to better serve clients and improve the quality of your agency's programs. Let's start by defining inequality. Inequality is defined as the imbalance of power or means of access to opportunity. There are three main types of inequality: political, economic, and social or cultural. Political inequality occurs when individuals or groups have greater influence over decision-making and benefit from unequal outcomes. Examples of political inequality include voter suppression, census miscounting, and redlining. We'll discuss some of these in depth later on in the video. Economic inequality refers to an unequal distribution of income and opportunity between different groups. This occurs when labor is disproportionately valued, resulting in large differences between top earners and the working class. Social or cultural inequality is the difference in the treatment or status of groups based on norms, practices, and customs. There are many different kinds of social inequality, such as race, gender, or religion, to name a few. Inequality has a significant history of impacting the most vulnerable of our population in the United States. In order to better understand its impact today, we will first examine some of the history of these issues. Redlining has had a lasting impact on many of our clients' communities. This practice of designating areas as either desirable or hazardous has strong ties to both economic and social inequality, being largely based on poverty rates and racial characteristics. Despite being outlawed by the Fair Housing Act in 1968, redlining continues to affect low to moderate income areas and people of color today. Voter suppression has long been used to prevent specific groups from voting in an election. Suppressing votes has been achieved in many ways, including a poll tax, which affected low-income individuals, a literacy test affecting those without access to education, and strict identification laws, which often affect low-income individuals and people of color. While many suppression tactics have been eliminated, strict identification laws continue to challenge communities in assessing their right to vote. Incomes grew rapidly and at roughly the same rate up and down the income ladder between 1940s through the 1970s. By the mid-1970s, however, the income growth of the middle and working class individuals slowed significantly, while the upper class saw immense wealth opportunity. Over time, this wage gap only continued to grow, resulting in low-income individuals and families having less and less access to economic opportunities such as education and food security. It has also led to a notable disparity in poverty rates among the communities of color. Because the category of social inequality is very broad, we will take a look at two groups targeted by social inequality: women and lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer or LGBTQ people. Throughout the world and a majority of cultures, the history of patriarchy has left men more likely to hold social, economic, and political power. This discrimination has manifested in a wide variety of ways, including exclusion from voting, owning property, accessing education, obtaining employment, and living in a safe environment free from violence. At one point, it was so ingrained in our culture that ads such as this one were a common occurrence. Though advancements in women's rights have been made, women today continue to face barriers socially, economically, and politically. LGBTQ individuals have also faced a number of barriers to equality. Being LGBTQ was considered a mental illness until 1973 and was also a crime in many parts of the United States until 2003. Because of these statuses, LGBTQ people faced exclusion from gainful employment, fair housing, as well as access to health care, public spaces and accommodations, and safe environments. Despite some recent progress in the political level, LGBTQ people are still denied access to many of these areas affecting their livelihood. So what does inequality look like today? Well, 35 states currently require government-issued identification to be presented at the polls. States with the strictest ID laws are those with higher rates of poverty. During the 2016 presidential election, 9% of Black and Hispanic individuals lacked proper ID to vote, disproportionate to only 5% of white individuals. When it came to accessing polling places on Election Day, 15% of Black voters and 14% of Hispanic voters had trouble finding and accessing transportation to the polls, significantly higher than the 5% of white voters. This is one of the many examples nationwide that highlight the impact of voter suppression on accessing the right to vote. Poverty continues to pose a threat to many communities, particularly communities of color. In 2016, Black and Hispanic communities faced poverty at rates nearly twice as high as their white counterparts. In recent years, Massachusetts and several other states have approved legislation to increase the minimum wage. This change, however, is slow-moving, and it will take at least a few years for it to have any real impact. The long-lasting effects of discrimination against women in the U.S. have dire economic consequences. On average, women still earn less than their male counterparts performing the same level of work. In a 2018 report on wages, median annual earnings for women working full-time in Massachusetts was $54,646, compared to $65,939 for men. Women in the Commonwealth earn 83 cents for every dollar that men earn. This figure is lower for Black and Hispanic women, earning 61 cents and 52 cents, respectively, for every dollar paid to white men. Of the 10 million people who identify as LGBTQ, approximately 40% identify themselves as people of color. When the Center for American Progress surveyed LGBTQ people of color, they found that those who identify as Black and/or Hispanic are more likely to live in poverty, experience food insecurity, and have less access to the resources they need to obtain higher wages. Approximately 66% of hate crimes in Massachusetts are based on race and sexual orientation, putting LGBTQ people of color at the highest risk of violence and discrimination. In November of 2018, less than 68% of Massachusetts residents voted to allow transgender individuals to use public restrooms associated with their gender identity, proving that access to even the most biologically essential resources can and will be brought up for debate. Inequality continues to be a pervasive challenge facing low to moderate income individuals, their families, and people of color. Political, economic, and social barriers still exist, creating barriers to opportunity for many. With a better understanding of inequality, you will be better prepared to help your community action agency provide quality services and programs for all of your clients.